Hello, and welcome to V. Scott Speaks, where I give you news, poetry, black history, and scandals. Today we will be talking about Sarah Bartman. Sarah Bartman was born Zarzia. She was one of the first black women known to be subjugated to human punishment. She was divisively named the Hottentot Venus by Europeans, as her body would be publicly examined and exposed inhumanely throughout the duration of her young life. Sarah Bartman was born to a Guanaco subgroup of the Khoikhoi in 1789, Gomatos River, which is found in South Africa's Eastern Cape. Bartman and her family were members of the Guanaco subgroup of the Khoikhoi. Sarah Bartman grew up on a colonial farm where she and her family worked as servants. Sarah's mom died when she was only 2 years old, and her father, who was a cattle driver, died when Sarah was a little girl. Sarah was married by her teenage years to a Khoikhoi man who was a drummer. She had a child with her husband, but the child passed away not long after birth. When Sarah Bartman was only 16 years old, her husband was unalived by Dutch colonists. Not long after her husband's passing, she was sold into slavery to a man named Peter William Caesar. He took her to Cape Town. She was a domestic slave to his brother, Hendrik. On October 29th, 1810, she was actually unable to read and signed a contract with William Dunlop, and she was only 21 years old at this time. William Dunlop was a physician, and he was a friend of the Caesar brothers. She didn't understand what she signed because she could not read at all. The contract required her to travel with the Caesar brothers and Dunlop to England and Ireland, where she worked as a domestic servant. Since, technically speaking, slavery had been abolished in Great Britain, she would be exhibited for entertainment purposes. Sarah Bartman was first exhibited in London in the Egyptian Hall at Piccadilly Circus on November 24th, 1810. Her public treatment drew attention of British abolitionists who charged the Caesars and Dunlop with holding Sarah Bartman against her will. The court ruled against Bartman after Peter produced the contract that Sarah Bartman signed. And y'all know she couldn't read, okay? Sarah did testify and say she wasn't being mistreated. The publicity from the trial made her even more popular as an exhibit. Sarah was taken on numerous tours throughout England and by 1812 as far as Limerick, Ireland. Sarah Bartman was sold 4 years later to Paris, where she was under the control of a wild animal exhibitor and a traveling circus. She became part of the traveling circus show. A Napoleon surgeon in Paris named Georges Cuvier saw her, and he saw this as an opportunity to prove that white people were superior. He compared Sarah's movements to a monkey. Sarah passed away from presumed pneumonia, syphilis, and alcoholism. Before dissecting Sarah's body, George Cuvier made a plaster cast of her body. He preserved her brain and her genitals and placed them in jars and put them on display in the Museum of Man in Paris. They were finally removed in 1974, and she finally received a proper burial 187 years after her death. In 1994, South African President Nelson Mandela formally requested her remains be returned to South Africa. On March 6, 2002, her remains were returned and buried at Hankey in the Eastern Cape province. Thank you for watching, and if you would, like, comment, share, and subscribe.